DreAllDay.com.
Dre Baldwin, DreAllDay.com. Topic here today is do not break the law, but do break the rules. I can tell you why this is an important idea. Because first of all, rules, let me back up. Laws, don't break laws. If you break laws, you might get arrested, go to jail, things like that. You don't want that. You don't want to have to pay lawyers. Lawyers make a lot of money. So you don't want, and they make a lot of money by people having to pay them to keep their ass out of court. And in America, at least, those of you who live in the United States, being innocent or guilty has nothing to do with your actual innocence or guilt. It just has to do with if you can afford to prove it. And if you haven't been anywhere in the legal system, whether you're suing somebody, whether you've been in criminal court, any of that is all about how much money you got. So you don't want to have to spend your money on that. If you got money, don't use it on that. Use it on something that'll help you and your family. But anyway, don't break the law. Break the rules though. Let me tell you why you break rules. Because first of all, rules were made to be broken. You heard that cliche before? It's true, and it's a cliche because it's based in truth. Rules are made for specific reasons. They are made to keep everybody in line. They're made to make people's activities and actions predictable. And they're made so that we all know what everybody else, we can all reasonably predict and reasonably expect what other people are going to do. For example, right now I'm driving. I follow the rules of the road and I trust, it's not even that I expect, I trust that the other drivers out here are also going to follow the rules of the road, because if they don't, then I might be driving straight and there's a car there who's trying to make a left-hand turn, but they're waiting on me. But if they go and say, well, forget it, I'm just make my left-hand turn anyway and cross through traffic, then we get in a car accident, somebody might die. So there are positives to rules. I'm not telling you that all rules are bad and that you should just break every rule just because. Don't just go breaking rules willy-nilly for no reason just because you can. Break rules because, so I already explained to you why the conventions and the rules are a good idea. They keep people in line. When most people are following rules, then we can predict and expect what other people are going to do, and it maintains order. That's the good thing about having rules, is that rules maintain order and it keeps everybody knowing what's going to happen and what to expect. Now, here's the challenge with rules, though, on the other hand, especially for those of you who are creative thinkers, those of you who are the type of people who go against the grain, those of you who have some ideas or views or just desires and ambitions that you can tell, and you probably could have told this from a very young age, that you were just different from a lot of other people, is that if all you do is follow the rules, so follow them, but if that's the only thing you do is follow the rules, then you're going to end up just like everybody else. You're going to end up a carbon copy. You're going to end up a very conventional. You're going to end up very quote-unquote normal, or very regular, and also very fungible. Fungible just means replaceable, meaning if you went away, nobody would notice because you weren't bringing anything unique to the table in the first place. So that's the reason why you want to break rules. But I want to offer you some caveats to what I'm saying here. If you break the rules, at some point, you have to prove yourself correct. So you can't just be breaking rules and be wrong. Every time you break a rule, you end up wrong. So for example, you're an entrepreneur. A lot of people become entrepreneurs because they don't want to follow the conventions, right? The convention is what? Go to school, get a degree, then go get a good job, let somebody tell you what to do for 40 years, then you retire, and they give you barely enough money to keep living. All right, many people become entrepreneurs because they don't want to follow that path, right? So if you go a different direction, and you say you want to follow a different path, and let's say do something like being an entrepreneur, it doesn't have to be that, but anything else where you're going against the grain of what normally happens, at some point you have to be correct. You can't just be wrong your whole life while at the same time breaking the rules. Every time you break a rule, you need a reason to be breaking that rule, and you need a way to reasonably defend your reason for breaking the rule to where you can prove yourself right. To give you an example, those of you who are basketball fans, my hometown team, the Philadelphia 76ers, this is not Philadelphia I'm in, I live in Miami, but I'm from Philly. For several years, they had this whole situation that they called the process. If you follow basketball, you know about it. Is where the Sixers basically, they didn't say this in so many words, but basically they were losing on purpose for several years. The goal of having a really bad record, then you get a high draft pick, and hopefully a few of those draft picks become really good players, and then the team can be good after that. So the results of the process, if we just look at all the picks they had and all the players, they got a lot of high draft picks. Markelle Fultz, Nerlens Noel, Michael Carter-Williams, Ben Simmons, Markelle Fultz, Joel Embiid. And we can say the end result of the process, because the Sixers are actually good now, is Joel Embiid and James Harden, because they had Ben Simmons and they traded Ben Simmons, now they got James Harden. I think in the end, I think we can say the process has been a success because they ended up with that. The point is, the guy who engineered the process was this guy named Sam Henke. And he was, I don't know what his exact title was. I don't think his title was general manager, but he was basically the decision maker. He was the guy who made all the decisions as far as draft picks, free agency players, et cetera, et cetera. And he resigned from the Sixers a few years ago before they actually started to be really good. But one of the things that he wrote a resignation letter when he resigned from the Sixers, and he published the letter so everybody could see it. Because Sam himself, he's not actually a basketball guy. He's like a business guy who happened to get into the basketball world. So he published his resignation letter. It's like 10 pages on PDF. You can look it up. You should Google this letter and read it yourself so you can hear what he says, because he's talking about a lot of philosophical things that I think everybody could benefit from. And one of the things that he says in that letter is that when you decide that you're going to go against the grain and do something different from what the conventional wisdom tells you to do, which is what the Sixers did with the process, not only do you need to be different, but you also need to be right. You got to be correct. So when you go against the grain, the most important thing is you got to prove that your decision to do that was the right decision, and that everybody else who followed the rules was wrong. And this is the part about going against the grain and breaking the rules that a lot of people don't talk about and a lot of people don't tell you. And there's a reason why most people don't tell you this, and I'm gonna tell you what it is. The reason most people don't tell you this is because most people who break the rules, they lose. Most people who break the rules end up being wrong. Most people who break the rules end up not necessarily regretting, but in the long run, if we just look at it objectively, it was a bad decision based on what we know in the end to break the rules. Doesn't mean it was a bad decision at the time, but in the end, it ends up being a net negative for them to break the rules because they didn't get the outcome that they wanted. And now, depending on how philosophically deep you want to get into it, it can still be a positive because you can learn things from your failed experience and come back and be better for the next one. So there's a lot. It depends on how deep you want to go with it. Now, I know there are some deep thinkers who watch these videos, and there are some people who watch them who are not deep thinkers. We'll just say that for lack of a better term. And here's the other thing. Another phrase that people talk about all the time is betting on yourself. It goes right along with this. Betting on yourself often is something that people talk about when they're breaking rules, when they're taking some conventional wisdom or conventional idea or something that most people say you should do or what most people would do, and then they go against it. They do the exact opposite of what everybody else told them to do, right? And usually people only talk about betting on themselves after the bet has been won. After they had bet and succeeded in their bet, they won the bet. Then they say, hey, see, this is why you should bet on yourself. Or some athlete, for example, bets on themselves. They fire their agent, they negotiate their own contract, then they get a big contract for a lot of money. People are like, hey, see, this is why you should bet on yourself. Or some athlete takes a 1-year offer for one team for one season. They have a great one season, then they get this big contract after that. And people are like, oh, see, this is why you should bet on yourself. This guy bet on himself. Look at all the success he got afterwards. Here's the part they don't tell you about, folks. That for every one person who bets on themselves and they win and they get to brag about the fact that they won, there's 50 people who bet on themselves and lost. Nobody tells that story. Nobody talks about that. There's no articles about that. Nobody who bet on themselves and loses, they don't post it on their Instagram that they bet on themselves and lost. And there's a lot more of those than there are people who bet and win. And I'm not telling you not to bet on yourself. I'm not telling you not to break the rule. I just told you the topic of this video is break the rules. So yes, break the rules, but understand that's not the whole game. That's only half the battle. Half the battle is breaking the rules / betting on yourself. The other half of the battle is you got to win. You got to prove yourself right. So in the long run, you can look back at whoever told you you were wrong and you can tell them that they were wrong. That's how you make a name for yourself. That's how you get known. That's how you create the real change. That's how you create a new normal, is when you go against what is accepted and you prove that your way is better than the old way. Now it becomes conventional. Now everybody else is going to do your way. That's the way that it works. So if you didn't know, now you know. So 2 things I'm going to tell you to do from here. Number 1, get on my text list. You get my daily motivation text that I send out every single day for free to everyone in my text community. My number is 305-384-6894. It's down below in the description of this video. And number 2, join me in my Bulletproof Mastermind. That is the only place where I do live trainings where you can get on a call directly with me on Zoom every single week, where I have a community of serious professionals who are serious about taking their games to the next level. They're already at a level that most people are not at, but they want to go to another level with their personal growth and their business growth, because a lot of people don't understand you cannot grow a business without growing the person who's running the business. So if you run a business right now, any of you, your business can't grow any further than you grow. If you're not growing, the business won't grow. And if the business grows without you, either you're going to get kicked out of that business or you're going to cause the business to shrink back to the level that you're at. That's the way that it works. And you get all the information about my membership, the Bulletproof Mastermind, by going to workonyourgameuniversity.com. That link is down below as well. And you can get my monthly bulletin, my monthly magazine called the Bulletproof Bulletin. You can get that every month. I'm going to ship it physically to your mailbox wherever you live. So both of those links are down below. My number and Work on Your Game University. Work on your game. Dre, all